Hey guys, this will be a quick video on how to make colliders work inside of Unity, and more specifically how to make it so that whenever an object touches a specific collider, it'll trigger an action to happen. So I'm going to go over here and we're just going to first start with the setup for this work. Now if we want Collider to work inside of Unity, we need to do one really important thing. We'll click on the object right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a component and add a collider component. In this case, I'm just going to add a box collider 2D component to it. If you want collider to work, both the object that you want to act as a collider and the object that you want to collide with need to have a box collider on it. So in this case, I want this object to collide with a new object I'm going to make, which is going to be called create an empty object. We'll call this teleportation portal, like that. With this new object created, I'm just going to see where it is. It's right here. I just press W to see where it is. And now I'm just going to add another box collider 2D component to it. And now with this object, I am going to first make this object a trigger volume. Make it a trigger volume because I want this object to be set so that whenever it touches another object like this, it'll make something happen. If you zoom in, you'll see a green box around this player. That is the trigger volume for the player, and this is the trigger volume for the portal. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually make this trigger volume closer here, and the reason for that is because I want this object to move whenever touching this trigger. So now this object is inside of this trigger, like that. So I know that whenever I trigger a script to work, it'll work. So here's the object that I want to act as our portal. I made the object. Now I'm going to actually start doing the code to make it actually work. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to right click, create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this portal, like that. With this script created, I'm going to first attach it to this game object right here. So I'm going to go here, attach it like this, and then I'm going to go inside the script. And give it a second to open. And now this is my portal script. Now if you want something to trigger whenever it touches another object, we're going to actually make a new function. So at the end of line 17, I'm going to press enter a couple of times. I'm going to do void on trigger enter 2D. Let me scroll down a little bit so you guys can see all of it. But yeah, void on trigger enter 2D, collider 2D, and then collision. So what this code does is it says, hey, whenever an object enters this trigger volume, it will do whatever is inside of here. More specifically, this on trigger enter 2D is looking for any object that has a collider 2D component. So every object that has a collider 2D component, this function will catch. Any object that touches it with a collider 2D component, it will be stored as the word collision as a variable. Now, here's what we're going to do next. I want to make it so that if another game object has this component, I'm going to do something. So I do if, I'm going to get the name of the object that touched it, so collision dot game object. So if the object that touches it is a game object, it's going to do something. In this case, all I want to do is I just want to do debug.log, and I just say, hello, like that. I'm going to save it, run the program, and because this object is a trigger volume and it's inside of the other object, when I go to the console, it should say something, but it didn't. So let's see what's happening here. I'm going to make sure this is trigger volume, and I'm going to make sure this other object has the box collider on it. Cool. So all that seems to be working. I think the issue here is whenever you want to make something a trigger volume, whenever you want something to activate whenever it touches the trigger, in addition to the box collider, you also need a rigid body 2D component. I'm gonna add this rigid body 2D component. I'm gonna actually turn off the gravity because I don't want it to fall, and I'm just gonna run that and see if that worked. And when I ran the program, you see that it now says hello. The reason why that works is because whenever you have a Collider 2D component, this is just making this object a solid. Nothing will actually trigger when collisions work unless you have a rigid body 2D component in here. The reason for that is because the rigid body 2D component had the code that's checking for collision. So without a rigid body 2D component, this will not work if it hits a trigger volume. Alright, so that's really how that works. So if I go back here, there's the code, and we know that this code actually worked, which is perfect. Now I'm going to show you how we can expand on this code a little bit. Right now this code is working so that whenever it touches any object with that collider, it will store it in here and make this work. But say I have two characters here. So I have this character and I have this character. I'm going to move it over here. And I want it to be that only this character will trigger something to work and this character won't. So let me just change the color just to make sure that we can see the difference between the two. Sure, he'll be green. He'll be feeling a little bit green today. He'll be feeling sick with COVID today. So, with this object right here, I want only this object to trigger it and not this object. Now, if we run the program right now, you'll see that it triggered 2 times because both these objects are acting, are triggering the function to work. To make only one object trigger to work, we're going to do something called creating a tag. Now, think of a tag like a unique identifier for an object. And what we can do, we can specify a certain tag so that the code only works when an object with one tag hits it, but not another tag. I'm going to give this, right now it's untagged, I'm going to give it a tag of player for now. Why not? Give this a tag of player. And now I'm going to make it so that anytime an object with the tag player touches it, it does something. I'm going to go back into my code at the end of this right here. So we're looking for a collision, and if that collision is a game object, now if that game object had a tag equal to player, like that, then it will work. So all this is doing is saying, hey, does the object that touched it have a Collider 2D component? If it does, is this object a game object? If it is, does it have a tag of player? If all that is true, then it'll print out this message. So let's save it. Go back here. Run the program. And now you see the hello only triggered once, but it didn't trigger for the other one because this other one doesn't have the tag. If I gave this one a tag now, and I brought it out and back into the collider, it'll work. But without that tag, it will not work. Alright, cool. So that's 2 ways of making something happen whenever you enter a trigger volume. I'll go over how to make something happen when you stay and exit trigger volume in another video. But that should be all you need to actually make interactions work on its most basic level. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a good one.